Yeah, I believe we are recording. Welcome, everyone. My name is Joe Lonizak. I am the downtown design specialist with Wisconsin Main Street. And welcome to our recorded presentation of our one of our regional technical assistance visits that we do fairly regularly across the state in different communities each year. This one is on merchandising, and it's going to be Lynn Falk and Suzanne Raffenstein from Retailworks, who we have had a great partnership with here at WEDC and Wisconsin Main Street for decades now. And they're going to be presenting their merchandising uh, slideshow called Creating the Customer Experience. It's actually a longer title than that, but I shortened it for for my own purposes. Um, but anyway, so this is going to be the presentation that you'll watch in advance, and then in May and June of this year, they will be in Wausau, Racine, Jefferson, Beloit, and Ripon, and there will be a morning session for about an hour in each of those communities where you can ask questions based on this presentation or anything. We'll have a roundtable discussion. They're going to do some more visual a presentation on like lighting and things like that it would be hard to do recorded. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Lynn and Suzanne.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Good afternoon or morning or good evening, whenever you decide to watch this program. We're going to start with just some pertinent background for those of you who don't know who we are. I'm Lynn Falk, and I started Retailworks 30 years ago, and we're based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but we do have a couple satellite studios. We work all over the country, and the majority of our clientele are independently owned, operated retail spaces, businesses located on Main Street and in historic buildings. So that's really what we've cut our teeth on. I grew up in retail, and I have an interior design background, and also my thesis was in consumer behavior and environmental psychology. So we know how to manipulate a lot of things in an environment to get people to buy more stuff.
And I'm Suzanne Raffenstein, and I'm the display director and a retail consultant here at Retailworks, and I'm in the Milwaukee studio. And I have equally as much as Lynn, extensive background in retail, being in the field, in retail management, retail buying, and then I owned my own business for 20 years. So I can walk the walk and talk the talk because I've been a small Main Street type business and have had great experience doing it, and was very, very involved in every aspect of running my business.
Yeah, so between the two of us, we've touched most every piece of anything that goes into a retail store or business. And as I mentioned, I do have a bit of a background in what I call design science. So in addition to consumer behavior and environmental psychology, I've always also done studies in neuromarketing, which is kind of a buzzword in the last decade or so, and the laws of nature. And you probably have heard of biophilic design, and I'll be touching on that later. But that really is all about really, you can't deny Mother Nature and a lot of what occurs in nature. And a lot of that is now being understood as a big effect on us humans as we live, work, and play indoors, inside spaces. And I want to just briefly touch on the left brain and the right brain. So the left brain, these neuromarketing studies really are, it's about how someone interprets a space and then makes a purchase decision. And the high level thing to remember here is the left brain, and we're going to refer to this in some slides coming up, is what interprets a selling environment. So as soon as someone walks into your store, the left brain kicks in and says, can I get from point A to point B pretty easily? Or am I going to stand here looking stupid because I don't even know how to shop this store? So we really want to make it as effortless as possible for that left brain to make sense. It's that rational left side that interprets how he or she is going to shop a store. The right brain is where we can really have some fun. This is where over 80% of our actual purchase decisions are made using that emotional side of our brain. And that means really creating a lot of positive emotional reinforcements throughout the shopping experience. So once the left brain says, hey, yeah, I want to shop here because I can get around pretty easily. Now we're going to entice people to stay for a while in the store and look at things, touch things, get engaged, smile, learn about things. And this is what's important when you are thinking about promotions, displays, focal point displays, merchandising, buying, even your inventory. How are you putting it out and making someone feel positive? That's that emotional side. And it's usually through humor, entertainment, giving someone really good information that will make their lives better, something that's inspiring, or telling them a story that makes them feel good. So these are all ways, and you want to think about this as we're going through our slides and we're talking about the customer shopping journey, because it's really important to think about how to sustain an emotionally positively engaging shopper's journey. And we can talk all day long about how to create a beautiful functional space that's, strong when your brand reflects your mission. But we want to make sure that you're also in the right location, you're carrying the right product lines, you're pricing them at the right price point, you have the right service in place, a good staff. All of these things are really important to keep you a successful business owner. And even attitude is important. Just as we were talking about creating an inspirational selling environment, you and your staff have to have that positive, upbeat, inspirational tone when you're discussing, talking, communicating with your customers.
Yeah, it's the first thing when your customers come into the store. If there's a weird vibe going on, attitude wise, whether it be you, because you're the store owner and you've had quite the day, you really have to put on a show. You have to be the entertainer, and you have to make those people very welcome and very comfortable in your store.
Exactly. And omni-channel retailing has also been a buzzword for at least a decade now. And that basically is saying that customers want to be available, or want you to be available, or your business to be available, accessible 24/7, meaning they can go at any point in time to your website or your social media platforms and get information about who you are, when your hours are, anything else. If you have an online e-commerce store, they can perhaps shop after hours. And so it's really important to have whatever the look and brand and feel of your storefront and your store interior be reflected in all of these two-dimensional digital platforms. Because if I'm going to your Facebook page, your Instagram page, or your website, I want to get a feel for who you are. So I want to make sure that you have photos of your store actually on the website and your social media platforms, even the storefront, because I want to start raising my expectations of what I'll see when I get there.
Right. And I'm the kind of person too, that if I'm looking ahead at a place that I've never been to, I want to see what the storefront looks like, because I want to know where I'm supposed to park and all those little details that a lot of people
they don't
want to
think
prepare and prep
Right.
for before they
Right.
come visit you.
So this is a client of ours in Ripon. Hi, Shelley. So this is Diedrich's Jewelers, and we've been working actually with Craig from downtown Ripon for years. And Shelley is one of our great clients on the Main Street. And they just opened up right next to them. So they have a jewelry store to the right of this picture. And then they opened up and renovated the space next to them. So now they have adjoining spaces. And she put this picture on her Facebook page and her social media platforms. And it's just fantastic because it makes me want to come visit the store.
And it in one photograph, it explains who she is, like every bit of it, whether it's the finishing work that she did on the walls, the beautiful chandelier, the cases, it really identifies what kind of a jewelry store she is right from this one photo.
Right. And if you do have multiple locations, be sure that you put all of the locations, the storefronts, on your website. So don't just, if you have one, your headquarters, but then you have two satellite locations, put those on as well. And then people want to know about who you are, the history. So Dietrich's Jewelers is 100 years old, was a couple years ago. That's really important. People want to know that. They want to support stories. They want to support second, third, fourth generation business owners. And then we always want to be selling our senses. This is an experiential environment, retail. And one of the reasons it's so popular today is because it's a social environment and it's a sensory environment. You know, you can't smell your computer to, you know, or taste something that you're trying to buy on your computer. So people are resorting to going back to retail and saying, you know what, I want that social experience. I want to be able to touch and feel something. I want to get out of the house. I want to get away from my computer. And so we want to be thinking about how does your store smell? What does it sound like? Do you have music playing? How loud is that music? And whenever you're picking an aroma or music to play in your store, make sure that you are thinking about your target market. What will they respond to? You know, if you have an older generation, you might want to have older rock and roll. Or if it might even want to have jazz music or classical music. But if it's a younger generation, you might want some club music going. And the aromas, there are a lot of studies about all different types of aromas that can stimulate people or relax people. So again, you want to think about what you're selling and who you're selling to. And the one thing with aromas is make sure you're only using natural essential oils or products. So none of these Glade plugins, they're very chemical based and they can cause a lot of allergic reactions and headaches in people who visit your store. So our recommendation is the simplest, inexpensive way to get an aroma is to buy a small $20 crock pot and fill it with water and put some essential oils in, or at holidays, maybe some cinnamon sticks, some spices. In the summer, maybe some citrus or some pine. Anything that, again, you can turn it on for an hour and it just disseminates itself into the air for a few hours in the morning, and then maybe, you know, have it on for an hour in the morning, then shut it off and it will just disseminate for a few hours. In the afternoon, turn it on again for 1 hour.
And two, because you're in your store very often, a lot, you might not recognize smells because you're very, very used to smelling how it is. So I always suggest having a trusted ally, an advisor, somebody that you are not going to be offended by their comments on how the feel of your store is, whether it's the smell of it, whether it's too loud. I always use my sister. I let her come into the store. I'd say, how does it smell? What do you feel? How's this going for you? And I will take her criticisms, whatever she wants to say, to heart, and I will adjust it. But it's really important to have someone else experience those sensory elements,
right,
and report back to you.
Yeah. Can't see the forest for the trees.
Right. Sometimes. And that's okay, because you're used to it. You're there every day, and it's nothing against you, but
right.
Bring someone different in.
And, you know, the sense of touch, we're going to talk about getting it kind of intimate with your displays, because if you can get someone to touch your product lines, you are going to increase sales of that product line up to 50%. So it's really important to get people to interact with your merchandise. And then finally, just because you don't maybe sell something to eat or drink, it doesn't mean that you can't offer someone a glass of water, a cup of coffee. If you don't want to get messy, then maybe just a bowl of wrapped mints. And the hottest mints these days are butter mints. So, and you can get butter mints with your logo printed on the individual package. So a bowl of those would be nice at the counter. Elements and principles of design are the tools that we also have in our back pocket and we use all the time. You've probably seen these words, terms in Art 101 back in high school, but they are our tried and true vehicles to create great composition. Like when we put window displays together and focal point displays, we are always looking at elements of design, which are words that basically describe objects, and then the principles of design, which is what you do with multiple objects together. So if you have an object that contrasts with its background, contrast is a great attention getter. repeating the shape of something, the size and shape of a particular item. Repetition is a great attention getter and also will help people remember that display. Movement, again, is kind of meaning it's contrasting with something that's static behind it, is very attention getting. And under elements of design, color is the most, if you think about all the different colors in the color wheel, red is the most powerful. But when you use color properly, it can be an amazing selling tool for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I talked about knowing your target market, but also really knowing who you are and who your brand is, what your color palette is, what your textures are. And we often ask in a digital questionnaire, what does your store smell like and taste like? And if you had to put it to music, what would be the song? What is that brand that you are trying to celebrate throughout the entire customer's shopping journey? And then we take all of these tools. So we're thinking about the target market, we're thinking with our through our senses, we're looking at the elements and principles of design, looking at the brand, and now we have to start putting them into the three-dimensional environment. And that starts with your storefront.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things that we look at when we come to audit a storefront. And it's a lot. It's not just looking at window displays and paint colors, but there's a lot of accessories that you might have on the outside, whether it's flags or banners or benches or planters, maybe an old mailbox. There might be there's a jewelry store that actually puts out some red carpet right out front, inside the front door. And it's like you're walking in on the red carpet. So, door handles, these are all things to be thinking about that celebrate the beginning of the shopping experience.
And this is very important, is cleanliness, organization, and maintenance. The facade of your store, before anyone even gets into it, is kind of like how you want to keep your face. You want to keep it looking welcoming, presentable, tidy. It's a reflection on your business. There's been many, many times, and I'm a shopper. I like going into stores. I like traveling and going into different types of neighborhoods and going somewhere where I've never been. But I'm not going to go in a store if I don't think that the maintenance on the window, the front door, if it's dirty, if it just, and I'm not being picky, but it just kind of already gives me a definition about what your business is about. So if it's very clean and inviting and, there's no bugs or dead plants in the window, I'll go in it. But,
It's amazing how a lot of owners go in and out the back door and
right,
they don't look
even
at the
see.
front door.
Right. And people's times are limited. So you want to be the store on the street that they go into if they can only visit one or two that day.
And it's first impressions. And during COVID, a lot of the interior of the store actually came to the outside. So people were bringing out clothing racks or tables and putting merchandise on it. People were lined up because maybe only so many people could get into the store at one time. So then they'd put things on tables that people could look at as they're waiting in line. They had checkout counters out. And of course, the restaurant industry is still bringing people out onto sidewalks and even into the street. They're carving out some space sometimes and taking a couple parking spots up, but putting people out there to eat outside in the clement weather. So this has continued, and a lot of main streets, I think, have become a lot more visually active. The downtown looks like it's coming to life. And there are maybe more light fixtures put out, more benches, more planters, more banners. People are coming out and playing music.
Yeah.
And we love that. We like to see that activity out on clement days and on busy weekends.
And you can also bring the theme of your business outside. And I think a really great example of it is the photograph that's on the lower portion of it. That's a framing studio, and they have a planter in the front that had the corner samples of frames mounted onto the planter. I mean, how incredible is that? Remember, when people are walking down the street, down the sidewalk, a lot of people aren't looking at every single window. A lot of times people look at their feet when they're walking, but if you can grab their attention with something interesting and quirky and make them lift their heads and look up and see your store, more power to you, because just just grabbing their attention is difficult, but once you get it and you invite them in.
Yeah. And so again, outdoors is a part of real estate that you can work with. And depending on your community and what space you might have on a sidewalk, I take advantage of it. This picture on the left is actually in Texas, and this particular, it was kind of a lifestyle mall, but it was very old and historic. But they had a lot of Instagram pictures that were taken outside of this shop. People just loved this feel, and it happened to be under an overhang, so they could keep it out most year round.
And when you have displays and pieces outside like that, you become the talk of the town. You become, oh, you're visiting, you need to go down to that store because it is so incredibly fun and interesting
Right.
and it's really putting a show on.
Yeah, thought went into this. So again, whether it's decorating a sidewalk sign, putting neon in the window, but then on the upper left, we also have outdoor or florals on the outside of that window around the neon. So, anytime we can bring greenery out there. On the right, we have a wreath in the window, but then we also have a standing urn. We have a window box. We have the striped awning. We have a lovely window display. It's just a great visually interesting and inviting spaces.
And when you do planters or florals or things like that, make sure they're very well maintained. That's life. There's energy. You want to bring that life into your shop. It's again, it's a reflection of we've got this taken care of. We're covering it. We'll take care of you.
Exactly. And this is a restaurant in an old bank building up in Canada, actually, Collingswood. It's a nice small historic town. But again, look what they did with florals on the outside, greenery. So now in contrast, knowing that curb appeal accounts for 70% of first-time sales, is there any really reason why you'd want to get out of your car and run into this store and hope to find a really nice dress and, pair of shoes and some jewelry and a handbag? No. So obviously this is where first impressions are not working in our favor. Again, second stories as well. Don't forget that when people come down a main street, if they're driving, they tend to look up before they're even looking down on the first floor. So whether there's a banner or a flag, or again, some interesting little porch trellis kind of.
A little greenery
up there.
Yeah.
And on the right, this is an interior design firm in a small community in California. And I love how she brought out furniture and has a bike out and then her portfolio on a table.
And these can be either furnishings that you're selling, or they could just be props. Just something outside of the box, just a little something extraordinary. And then when we are talking about stores who maybe they have a designated back entrance as well as their front entrance, to not disregard the back entrance. Make that just as lovely and inviting as the front, using colorful chairs, using colorful flags, making sure it's painted and well maintained. And there was a window display if you have that. But back entrances, maybe into parking lots, should be just as welcoming as a main street front door. And again, another example of a very, very fun bathroom.
Which you're going to.
This is
Racine or Kenosha?
It's Racine or Kenosha. Let's say it's Kenosha.
Okay.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. But what we loved about this particular place where they did formal rentals, aside from every other thing under the sun, it was an amazing store. But they have a very cool entrance at their back parking lot. And what they did is they painted these enormous penguins on the back wall of their building, which totally signifies what they are. They painted their door red, here, enter here. They've got their logo on the wall, but just to carry over that really fun attitude. And they were a very fun store too.
And then just look at, again, even how we've used, or these businesses have used the shape of the building, color of roofs, the texture, the layout, signage, the storefront doors. Just everyone has personality here.
Mhm.
This screams, each one screams their own brand and signature look.
And all those carry on inside the store too.
Yes.
So,
Back.
which is great. Murals, I think, are incredibly important. I love the communities that we go to that really put some effort into murals across their towns. And just having, the side of your building painted, just artwork is inspirational. Artwork is attention getting. People want to go see the mural just because it's a mural. And then the added bonus is your business is attached to it. So, having a blank wall is kind of boring. Having something exciting and colorful is fantastic. And you don't need to be a Van Gogh or a creative artist. If you can paint a straight line, just get a bunch of colors and you can do something really, really attention getting that way as well. Even the sidewalks the sidewalks, yep, there over on the left side. And then also like a front entrance. The photograph in the middle was a beautiful tiled entryway. It was a very small area, but even to the people that are walking with their head down, the first thing they see, and it's hard to see in this photo, but the first thing they see are these knives, fork and spoon that's embedded into the sidewalk. And then it leads into that beautiful tiled entry. Now, if you don't own your building and you just want to do a little bit of accent, sometimes if you can just paint the front door that you have and maybe add a little planters that reflect that same color, that's your brand color, or paint to ceiling. In this case, a wine shop that has an undercoating of red above. It's just eye-catching. People can see it. You're pointing down the street, you got to go to that store, see that one with the red roof, that's where you go.
And door handles is, again, the first time someone is actually going to touch their three-dimensional environment. So it can be a fun conversation piece. Kessler's Diamonds makes the diamond rings for their door handles. And this one on the right is actually an old gas pump. This was in Deadwood, South Dakota.
Yeah, it was a cool shop. Sick boys.
So now we're just going to talk about window displays because they're such an important piece of the storefront and again, great real estate. And so we want to give you some inspirational ideas to think differently about your windows because they can really attract attention from across the street or from auto traffic going by, as well as people just walking right by the storefront. All window displays should have a theme and a focal point. They should be illuminated 3 times brighter than the surrounding store area environment and then changed regularly, especially if you have a lot of regular foot traffic. We would say once a month, if not, the minimum would be 5 times a year, being winter, spring, summer, fall, and holiday.
And again, when going back to the cleaning, because I am a clean freak, but make sure that your exterior glass is cleaned. And a lot of times in small communities, maybe you could organize with your fellow business owners that you could hire a service that does window washing that you could have on a regular basis, and maybe having multiple stores on a contract will get a much better price. And maybe something your neighborhood association could help organize, but it's really imperative to keep your windows clean, keeping them swept, getting those dead bugs out.
And the lights working.
Make sure your lights are working.
Yeah.
And 2 windows here that both have a lot of things in it, but one makes sense, the other one doesn't. This first one, it's very chaotic. There's really no sense of theme. It's just kind of one of those windows that are an explosion of merchandise. Basically, everything they had in the store, they put in the window. And I understand that sometimes people think that's fun and quirky. However, it doesn't help my sense of organizing and thinking. To me, that's chaos, and I understand you sell a lot of different things. However, if it's organized well, I can intake it better in my brain. I can organize it and I can shop better. Even just doing very, very simple displays, having some sort of like simple backdrop, painted white so that everything in front of it really pops, and then using color, bright colors on repetitious objects and stacking, or just making it very, very lovely and simple and
attention getting.
Yeah, that was a great theme. Again, using color as a theme, Maybe it's just a black and white window with maybe little touches of green into it. Maybe it's something that has, a video screen or something above it.
And we like threes, like odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, and white is so attention getting. So if you look on the left, that's a jewelry store and it has 3 showcases that are, have the white faces, which attract attention. And then above it are 3, it's a little hard with the glare, but 3 photos of rings enlarged. And then they have track lighting, so that really pops down onto those showcases. And then I like how they even carried it out on the outside with the 3 planters. Yeah. It's just really nice.
And again, I love the elements of surprise. I've done window displays before that are kind of weird and quirky, and it makes people do a double take or second look. But, on this occasion, somebody put a bed on a wall, which is a little bit weird and different, but it looks really cool. I love taking bits and pieces of mannequins and having them come out and surprising people. But it's just, I love using humor in windows. I love doing something unexpected and surprising. And again, movement is a great thing to have in your window. We talked about that earlier, whether it's like spinning tires. Obviously, this isn't a video, so you can't even see them moving. But the pinwheels, they have a little fan that is forcing the pinwheels to spin around, and it really does attract attention.
And video screens, of course, are great.
And human movement, if you have a business, like it's kind of like what we call the Cinnabon effect. Like when Cinnabon first opened, my gosh, I could stand there for an hour just watching them roll out dough and throwing everything in. It's fascinating. So people love watching other people do a skill, a task, a craft. And in these 2 occasions, there's an upholsterer. I find that fascinating to watch somebody work. I spend hours on YouTube going down those rabbit holes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I never knew that's how that was made. But it's fascinating to me. So if you have something that you sell in your store, or you have an artist, or you have a piece that is created, or even something that's maybe you don't really do that, but it's related to your business. If you can bring somebody in to do it. And then we talk a lot about color and repetition, and one, I think anthropology does an amazing job with color and repetition. The same object, maybe different colors, repeated. So it's very symmetrical, but it's very impactful. I mean, these are just socks and hangers, but it's such a cool window. And again, using that really incredibly vibrant backdrop color, or painting the whole shadow box of your window one color, and it really making it pop, especially with the red. Everything stands out in front of it so well.
I mean, these are not extravagant windows to put together, and they make great visual statements.
And again, these are just large cloth. They're actually canvas that we cut into sail shapes, and painted colors. We've got the cloths hanging behind the window. We have vinyl on the window in the little blue circles, the little bubbles of water. And then there's actual shelving that's hanging as well, so that the product is placed on that. On top of that, we added the brand of the store onto the sails. We added a little bit of vinyl as a messaging on it. And then one of my favorite parts of this particular store is a permanent installation that they did on the window above, are these sequins that just rustle gently. And this is a jewelry store, and it's just so lovely. It catches the light, and it's just that little bit of movement, but it's really, really beautiful, and it's very captivating.
Yeah.
And again, using window decals, we like using vinyl. It's easy, it's inexpensive. It can really change the look of a window. So in one of these windows, we did the vinyl border at the top and the bottom. And then we had the 3D props hanging inside, as well as vinyl lettering. And then in another, we actually took the packaging of the particular business and just made those into tulip-like flowers, or flowers that fill the front window. And again, using the color, shape, and repetition here, it's just a variety of different size risers. with a cool gray graphic pattern on some of them, not to overpower it, but it's just only on some of them. And then using a color palette in that bright yellow, the golden, the taupe, and the white. And it just creates a really beautiful display. It focuses the eye going up. You know, you're intentionally looking at the entire display because it's giving you a direction without you even realizing it.
Exactly.
And I love the exterior painting here. You know, if you have good landlords that you can do something fun like that, but it's painted on the brick and then it continues with the vinyl down onto the windows, and so cool. And here's a store that's on a very large, kind of a main drag here in Milwaukee. And they have a very long bank of windows that needed to get some attention. There's a parking lot right in front of it. So it needed to grab attention from a bit of a far away as traffic is driving by. And we simply took the brand's ribbon and it's very brand oriented and it's very, very eye catching. And here we've seen that they've actually taken a vinyl applied on the window in the yellow and blue striping, and then continued that fun pattern inside the window on the floor. Then it goes up the wall and across the ceiling, and then it continues too on the risers, and then merchandising with like colored or themed products in the window. Just a very, very cool framing. Then there's people that maybe have very large windows, and sometimes large windows, it's overwhelming because you think you have to fill it with some things. But if you kind of make a very small peephole or shadow box, or you can use vinyl in this regard too, by just taking that enormous window and shrinking it down in a really beautiful, artful way. And it's kind of like a secret little peephole that you're
focusing the attention.
exactly. Come inviting people to just take a little peek, and it's just really lovely.
So props are something that you want to make sure that when you're buying them, they have a kind of a value to them that's somewhat close to your product line's value. In other words, I give this example that there was a piano retailer and he was selling $5,000 grand pianos and up. And someone had gone to the local five and dime store and literally bought those crepe paper things that you open up and, you know, put them together so you make there's like a sphere, and then hung them from the ceiling. We don't want something like that. If you're going to put props in your store or in your windows, let's do something with some sense of quality. It does reflect on who you are as a business. And we always suggest putting in ceiling grids so that you have something to suspend a backdrop from, or if you are going to put multiples of something and you know, it's not standing on the floor, you need to be able to hang them from the ceiling.
And the ceiling grids really help in windows displays, especially because you can do layers. If you just have screw eyes, which is, you know, fine, but when you really want the ease of putting layers in,
very important.
Very, very important. And, you know, it doesn't all have to be grandiose. It could be very simple. I love, you know, the branch and rope display for clothing, or just having something draped over it. So simple. You can go in your backyard or pick up some supplies there, and just something quirky and adorable. This was in a children's store, and they had this just a very adorable, simple little swing with the toys on it. I mean, how sweet. And this is one of the windows that we did where we took something huge, and huge props are great for window displays because, again, they're very eye-catching. So we made enormous oversized tulips, and instead of just growing them out of the ground, we tipped them upside down and hung them from the ceiling. So not only do you have grand props in the window, big, bold colors, we also did something unexpected.
And then just taking colored acrylic and taking some balsa wood, you can actually make some oversized popsicles, which can be reused throughout the years in different manners. And then when you're working with something like a jeweler or a candy, or if you sell candy, chocolates, sometimes it's really hard to see the small things. So if you can blow up a graphic, so in this particular store, each side, particularly on the right, it's easier to see, but it's a whole box of chocolates that has been enlarged into a big graphic that was displayed in the window.
And it looked delicious.
And it's just, I love the chocolate brown on the outside, the coloring. I think their logo is fun. And then not only do they have that little pop of yellow above the C for crepe, but they have these wonderful light green, almost like the same sort of a crown effect in their greenery and out in front. And then they have the yellow door, which is very attention getting, and their fabulous logo icon on the door. And again, anthropology, take one item and multiply it and paint them. The left one are paint sticks that just been dipped in paint.
Yep.
So simple.
The paint sticks idea is just fantastic, different colors. And these are things that you can work on, you know, in the dead of winter when it's boring and you just, or you've got some helpers that have idle hands and you're like, I know what I need you to do. I need you to paint 152 of these. And it's real easy, but you can do it.
And then oddities. So, you know, who would have thought that metal ducting would serve as a window display? Now, this is one of those things where, again, you have to be able to have an artistic touch and an artistic eye to be able to pull this off. But these are very, and that talk about now opposites on value. You're taking a kind of a cheap HVAC system, you're putting expensive product on it, but this is really artistically done. And then on the right, they're taking string and foam core, which again is inexpensive, but it's done artistically.
Right.
And someone had to make this and come up with this.
And I would tell you too, if you were going to do a window with the ducks and you finish that one, I would in future take that duct again, do a different window, and I would maybe paint them all green, or I would do something to change it up so you can reuse those materials over and over again. You just think outside the box, be a little bit creative and use what you've already bought. You don't have to keep buying things every single time.
Exactly. Love the idea of these mailboxes at the holidays and then putting products in them. On the right, we took the Kessler's bag, their iconic red bag, and we had one of our carpenters make a 30-inch by about 36-inch actual masonite hard wood bag that we put in different seasonal arrangements for every season. So 5 times a year, that gets a whole new set.
And even like, just for instance, if you did a window, invest some money in, let's say you're doing mailboxes, okay? Invest some money, get something decent, make a good platform. And then you change the look of the mailboxes every season. That way you can have a fresh something all the time, but you've got your solid structure, you've put some money into it. But as you change it out, it makes it a little bit more interesting, like, oh, what's in the mailboxes now? And you just keep changing it out. So it's not like every, season you have to invest more and more money, just reuse what you're working with. Mannequins are always fun. Mannequins are not always inexpensive, especially if you do some very specific kinds, like our yoga gals there. But you can find, like, for instance, these were just scrap mannequins that we had access to. A lot of them are missing body parts. They weren't in really great condition. They were scratched and such. But what we did is we painted them. We found really fun different colors, painted a variety of the different body parts and folks, and then we made dresses out of newspaper. So relatively inexpensive way to do it. So if you are out and about at some rummage and you do see body parts or half mannequins or somebody's missing a limb, doesn't matter. If you paint them something fun, if you do, maybe you can polka dot them and then just do really fun white dresses on them, or great to use imagination.
And, for the holiday trees, you don't always have to buy an actual tree. You can just use the shape of the tree and use different items to make that shape. So we're trying to always think out of the box. And, if you come up with an idea You think, well, probably everyone came up with that idea. So now what do we do to it to add a twist to it, to make it different? How do you personalize it and make it more of your brand, that idea? And, if your community wants to get together and do a community-wide holiday theme, come up with maybe 3 or 4 ideas so that each retailer has a choice of what that particular item they want to put in their window. But it does help coordinate and unify an entire group of, let's say, 20 or 30 businesses in a downtown. And then if you have vacant storefronts, you can take these elements and put them in the vacant storefronts so they feel like they've been activated for the holiday as well. And lighting, as we said, you need your window displays to be 3 times brighter than the surrounding area. And that may mean bringing in some extra lights, whether it's along the side. We've gone to a local home building places and gotten the floodlights that you shine on your front door in the holiday season. And we'll put those in sometimes and plug them into a nearby outlet just to get some more light onto a window display. And we can't say enough about good lighting at night. If you are on a busy street, you want to make sure your storefront, your store sign, and your window displays are illuminated until 11 or midnight or whenever the traffic dies down. Put them on timers because people will see your windows and your storefront that way. And then signage, we really want to be careful on the storefront. Many communities are regulating how many square feet of your storefront that you can actually put signs. But we want to make sure that you always have your store name, your store hours, website address, and social media icons at eye level or below, so that when people are walking by, they can see that information. But you also want to think about people across the street or who are driving by at maybe 20, 30 miles an hour. What are they able to pick up quickly in your storefront signage? And we want to be able to tell people what all you might sell if it's not obvious, or services that you offer that may not be obvious with the store name itself. So putting in some extra vinyl lettering on the windows or along the top can be very helpful.
And that too is when some good graphic design work comes into play, because if you just have words just listed as to what the services are, kind of boring. But if you do some really more interesting graphics, like the one where we have the clock mirrors lamps, it's just a little bit more interesting. It's got an artistic bend and it's
artfully done.
Artfully done, yeah.
And again, this omni-channel retailing, because if someone grabs the door handle and you're locked or closed, they want to be able to, maybe there should be a QR code that people can immediately get to your website and get more information about you.
Yeah, so I am not a fan of Scotch tape. I think it looks awful. And there are so many other ways that you can adhere signage, important signage, let me say, to your windows. First of all, what I would love is for everybody to go outside and see what they've got on their windows right now. If they have any like holiday event, Christmas event signs, which should have been gone 3 months ago, or no smoking signs, or we accept Visa, MasterCard, things that are just not that important that you have on your windows, and really take a look and edit what you want to be showing in your windows, because that too is a reflection of what your business is. And then Scotch tape, not a good thing. And like I said, there are many other things that we can talk about, especially when we come there. We'll show you some examples of like some acrylic holders that can be put on a window, even simply framing them and making them look attractive and holding up with a ribbon. Some magnetic holders that can go on windows. It's just a lot cleaner and a lot better, but really, really edit what you've got in your windows.
Yeah. And in the advertising industry, they call it priming, when you actually kind of plant a word, a phrase, or actually a mood into someone before they enter a space to do an activity. So we love these sidewalk signs because they're already telling people, hey, you are going to get happy when you get in here. Wait till you see what's in here. Wait till you try what's in here. That's called priming the customer before they come in, and making sure that you let people know when you're open. I mean, it sounds obvious, but There are a lot of times you can't tell if a store is open or not. And so whether you need neon or you need to put some banners out, and we thought this was a great idea in downtown Fond du Lac. Anytime the businesses were open, they put out these little yellow flags that said open. So when you're walking down the street, you can see all the stores that are already open.
And that was a Main Street organized initiative. So all the open signs are the same. And it just, it's very, very community centric. And I absolutely love that idea.
Yeah, that was good. All right, so now we're gonna step into the inside of the store. And I always say that interior design is just 1,000 decisions that you have to make. But to make the decision-making easier, again, you go back to your brand and you go back to your target market. So who are you and who are you selling to? And understanding obviously your product lines as well. And when you understand the psychographics of your customers, which is more like what kind of car do they drive? Where do they vacation? What is their sense of style? Those sorts of things. You can really create some emotionally engaging displays that they will respond to. And also, do they tend to be quick shoppers, or do they tend to be strollers, or they want to take their time? Are they the kind that go to the symphony and that maybe they want to have nice wine, and so they want some nice classical music? And you know your clientele, you know why you're buying your products and who you're trying to sell them to. So we're trying to create an environment that supports all of that. And here's a list of everything that you have to make decisions on that when you put something into your store, whether it's the flooring, the walls, the ceiling, fixtures, cases, cabinetry, et cetera, et cetera. All of these have to work together to create a very strong, memorable, branded interior. I'm not a fan of black ceilings in retail, but in this particular case, she just really kind of knocked this whole thing out of the park because she knows her brand, she knows her clientele, and people love coming to this boutique, this high-end boutique shoe store. She's very successful with this particular brand and design. And this is a jewelry store in New Orleans, and they also wanted to be a little more stylish and artsy. And they wanted to have a little flavor of New Orleans in here, and that's why the chandeliers are actually of a New Orleans style. But look at the goldsmith back here. This is a design studio. Instead of just having a big open window, they did these little interesting, almost again like the peepholes here, but different shadow boxes that were windows looking into the goldsmiths. This faceted mirror here, instead of just a regular mirror, they did a faceted. They usually have cookies that are available when you walk in the store. Here on the left on the counter, they have a little cake container and it's usually full of cookies. They are very proud of their name, Ramsey. So they have that big logo on the back wall. It's well illuminated. Look at the different surfaces with the different colors and their color palette. There's a lot going on in here. And all of this was a lot of decisions so that every decision, again, for anything you put in here is going to relate to your brand, your product, and your target market. This is the store in Elkhart, Wisconsin, and it's for those of you who are race car enthusiasts, Road America, and their racetrack, which is actually seen in the ceiling piece here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this shape is world renowned. So people know about these corners, they're numbered, there's history behind this entire shape of track. So this was hung from the ceiling and LED lights go around it. Also been imprinted on the floor and the concrete here. And even their product lines they have some products that are in the shape of that particular racetrack. Now we're going to talk about displays. There's a difference between displays and merchandising. Displays are what you create really as focal points, and you usually have a prop, there's a theme, there's composition involved. You have kind of your display areas throughout your store, and you want to change them regularly. And this is what gets people really involved and emotionally engaged in the shopping experience. And in a typical 1,000 square foot space like this, The red stars are typically where we would look to place something that would attract attention so that the feet will follow the eyes. And it might be when you first walk in, it might be a nesting table, and then it might be a countertop, and then it might be the back or a wall on the right, might be the back wall. As you're walking around behind the cash wrap in the lounge area, there's a flat screen back there, and that has movement, and that will draw attention. So as people are walking throughout the entire store, they'll see something that should get them to move towards that area because of the focal point display. And it could be something as simple as kind of in a vestibule or a foyer when someone's walking in, that's just like a wow, that creates a first impression that's completely full of color and contrast in texture, size, shape. But it sets a mood. It's a mood for the brand. And that itself, this tree can be a focal point display. Sorry. Tabletops, nesting tables, end cap, pedestals. These are all focal point displays that should attract attention from a distance. Again, they're well thought through, they're coordinated in how they're put together. And here's an example of a couple selling floors on the next few slides where it's just, there is no focal point display. There's no real available traffic aisle to be able to walk through. The fixtures don't necessarily relate to each other, so they add to the visual chaos. It's just too much.
Your eyes can't rest.
Yeah, the left brain is shutting down. It's going, I can't interpret this space.
And again, high racks. This particular store had very high racks, which is hard too because your line of sight is stunted. It's stopped because you can't get beyond. A lot of things are all at the same level and packed. The racks were just way too close together, packed merchandise in here. And there was so much that it was difficult. It was,
yeah. If you don't have a lot of time, it gives you a headache just trying to think, how do I get through this store? How do I even know what they sell? I don't even know what's in the back, and I don't know if I can get back there.
And everything was random. They might have had glasses in this section, and then a few feet over there were some more glasses, and then there was some more on the back, and it doesn't help you make sense of it all.
Even more.
And even more.
There you are.
Then there, yeah. Okay.
So theme displays are another type of focal point displays that can be very simple and they stand out from their surroundings, but it gets someone to stop, look at it, and maybe pick something up.
And then sometimes we'll use mannequins within the focal point displays, whether it's a bust or a whole body sitting on a table. Again, this is something very unexpected where you have an entire body lounging on a table. It's kind of fun, but it certainly works and it catches your attention. And then in a lot of cases, like if you're using jewelry cases, and whether you're a fine jeweler or you just have some of the open back cases at your point of sale, just having a backdrop to stop the eye so it doesn't keep going into the chaos behind it, or being distracted by what's behind it, it helps really elevate the merchandise and it gives you a better perspective of what sort of merchandise is in that case. So having something to help stop your eyes from going too far. And then using, again, unexpected displays like this is quite extreme, but it's a motorcycle over a pool table in a barbershop, but it was fun. I mean, these are the
it made it into the slideshow.
These are the memorable things. If you think back of all the like different shops and places you've been, you're going to remember the memorable ones, the ones that were not ordinary, the ones that really stood out.
And having flat screens at the back of the store, as I said, can really draw attention from the front of the store. Or painting a little section of a wall. On the left, it's green. And then on the right, I love the fact that once the video pulls you in, then there's this whole display of these wood stumps, I guess you could say, finished, but with some of the booths that they had. So it's for an outdoor area. And Nordstrom's is known for their vignette focal point displays. Sometimes they have backdrops, sometimes they have video screens, they have mannequins, they have chairs, and often area rugs to identify this whole vignette. Oops, this was actually an 8-foot high fire hydrant that was put in the middle of a pet store. and of course becomes the focal point, and it has video screens running, and everyone wants to come over and see what's on the video screen of this huge. And it's also an Instagram moment. A living plan in a restaurant where the chef can come out and pick some herbs becomes very engaging.
Yeah, and then using columns, this was a really great display, just a structural column within the building, but she faced it with some wood, did some casing around it, and it takes a really big, ugly, obtrusive piece that's in the middle of your floor, and it makes it more functional and a great display
And
opportunity.
she illuminated it. She had power there, so
Yeah.
she could have lights on the showcases. Again, walls from a distance can become a focal point, whether it's just paint on the wall, some artwork. I love this on the right, Moonrise Jewelry on the East Coast. This wall piece is just, it's a work of art, and it draws you in. It no matter where you are in the store, if you can see this, you want to come over, you want to touch it. And there's a reason behind. They use some fish skin of some sort to make some jewelry. So it's a big thing that they're into, and very unique to them.
This is a boutique store, and what she did is the new fashions came in, she had her customers come in, she would photograph them in the clothing and then use those as models. The photographs were then blown up and mounted and put on the wall. And this is something great too, because you can come in and you can see your friends on the wall. And what we would probably suggest to her is just to kind of frame them, so it's a little bit more finished look. But those photographs you can change constantly.
Yeah. And then again, anytime you can get someone to touch something. So I love the gold chains coming out of the faucets on the left. And you just want to go over and touch these chains, or these tanned hides from a furniture store, or plugging in power tools on an end cap into an outlet. And go ahead.
Oh, and again, just different types of interactive displays where you can feel what the product is made from. And here are some samples or examples of filler or examples of different threading that you can use if you're going to have something embroidered.
Right. And in focal point display could just be a beautiful ceiling piece. And taking some old shoes that in a shoe store. It is amazing what you can do when you find one item and you multiply it and you hang it. Trend walls to help people understand the latest in fashion or home design trends. This could also be even a bookstore, that all the latest book trends, people are, what the topics and the subjects are of the top sellers. Or a Pinterest, like a literal living Pinterest board that could be magnetic or pinnable. And Instagram moments are still big. They are also focal point displays in themselves, and people want to be able to take pictures of themselves. And we always recommend that you have your store name somewhere in that Instagram area. And then, people will say to us, oh my God, this sounds great because, all these displays are wonderful, but I don't have the time. I don't have anyone. It's just me, or myself and a part-timer. And we always say, well, if you can set aside, even if it's $50 a month, and you get a calendar out and you write down which windows or interior focal point displays you want changed, you write that down, and then you assign someone. And if it's not you or your part-timer, then maybe you have to find a student maybe there's a state college nearby that they do photography. They have a photographer. So the merchandising is what you do with actual products on fixtures. And it's really just a matter of doing it in a very organized manner. So making sure that you're grouping products according to size, style, color, type, or vendor. And we always want to think about critical mass. You don't want to overly fill fixtures or not fill fixtures completely. So we really liked this one because you can see, first of all, how well this store is laid out. It's easy to shop. And look how it's just color coordinated with the merchandise. We understand not all stores are gonna have merchandise in these colors, or in such simple colors. But look at how each fixture and the walls are all merchandised, again, using the colors and elements and principles of design.
The objects all marry each other. They all work together.
Right. And end cap displays, which we've said were focal point displays, but you're also, this is an entire end cap is well merchandised with products that go together to create s'mores. But they're soldiering things. They have everything face forward. You can read the labels. It's not messy.
Yeah, this is a lot of visual chaos, and it's very hard to interpret the pieces that are there. You know, too much print on the tablecloth, even the wall unit, you could easily change that by simply having all white ceramics or all green ceramics. It would make a much more impactful display. It would make much more sense. So it's like picking one idea, one theme. All of this is, you know, Irish oriented ceramics, or all of this is all terracotta. Just by helping your customer organize by very, very carefully selecting what you have on particular fixturing.
And sometimes there's too much negative space. So we want to think about proportion, which is a principle of design. And, you know, it feels like someone just threw some fixtures on the floor and that was it. And then they opened the door. And when I say literally put fixtures on the floor, they did. And we never want, especially food items on the floor. We always say that we want about 18 inches off of the floor up to 7 feet. That is your critical sweet spot to do merchandising, because people can reach up to 7 feet and they don't really want to have to bend over and pick something up off of the floor. So think about critical mass and merchandising according to the size and the shape of the product, the packaging. Now we have
the department that it goes into.
Yeah.
Like I hate it when I go somewhere and they have soap displayed next to like snacks.
Yeah.
I hate food and soap together. It just is
Don't go together.
not good. The
Right.
smells are wrong, everything.
Yeah. And, you know, we have to be careful about, you know, not going too close to the floor. However, when you're on a raised gondola, the things aren't on the floor, but you still want to be careful about, if your target market's older, people still won't want to shop off at the lower level. But think about who you're merchandising to and who you're selling to. But this, you know, this is like, again, critical mass, really doing a nice job with the quantity of merchandise and how it's displayed. And it breaks up, this whole wall is broken up with face outs and then parallel versus perpendicular to the wall.
And rods and shelving. It's a nice collection. Colors look great.
And even if you are selling smaller items, having them all in like containers and signage that is easy to read and similar, really makes a difference. This is where the left brain really appreciates the organization.
Easy to shop this, very easy to shop.
So again, think about how someone is reading like a wall or a fixture, left to right, top to bottom. And what are their eyes picking up? And is it easy to understand everything that's on that fixture? And even custom fixtures, you know, are nice. But let's then make sure that all of them are made out of the same materials and the same colors so that the product itself is what really shows off. This is interesting because there's a lot of different things you can merchandise off this, and then it also has a little bench on it. So it's a very unique piece, but it's in a very contemporary artistic retail environment. And again, fixtures that coordinate, that work together. So your wall system matches your floor system, fixture system. And again, just look at the merchandising, and this is a beautiful focal point nesting table display up front, but easy to walk around this store. It draws you in. It's the left brain's happy, the right brain is like, "Ooh, what's this?" And you know, little focal point displays here and there. You can certainly use furniture as fixtures. We like this one because it actually has lighting in it. So all of the shelves are illuminated, so you can really see the product lines.
Yeah, and I love this. This is just taking probably some tables that you could probably get inexpensively at Goodwill, slicing them in half and then rearranging them artfully attached to a wall. But then what you're doing is you're painting them all the same color. So the product is actually the star of this show. The fixturing is interesting, but it doesn't distract from the product.
And studies have shown that if you can put your impulse merchandise into like containers, like all square or all round or all tin, you will sell more impulse items. And it again keeps that visual distraction down. And then signage is super important to get a sign system so that all of your signs coordinate and kind of become a family of signs. Don't just throw up a sign because you think you need to tell your customers something. You have to say, is this a vendor sign, a product descriptive sign? Is it a promotional sign? If so, what kind of sign holder should it go in? What size should it be? What font should we be using? What color should it be? So that you really organize your entire sign system. And when you do this, you're training your customers to look for your signage system. Don't ever use handwritten signs unless you've got a bakery or a deli and you've got prices changing daily and you have really good penmanship. Simple, clean department signs, easy to read from a distance.
Yeah, great 3D lettering that you can use.
Different sizes,
yep.
top of counters, on shelves, inside cases. We do love, again, the humor.
Yep.
And quotes. I think that can be fun. Signage that might have you getting your customers back on digital. So that's that omni-channel retailing again, with QR codes. Hashtags in the store. And if you're in a fabulous building that has history, people want to know about it. So that can be considered an informative sign. So telling your story, and if you do have a great history in your third or fourth generation, tell people about it. Put a timeline up. Let people know about why it's important for them to be shopping there and paying for products in your store. And then as we get kind of to the branding of the checkout counter and the final piece of giving someone the product and putting it in packaging, you want to even your culture of your staff and how they communicate, the vocabulary and words they use to describe the product lines in the business is really important, and how they look is really important.
And before we go into lighting, I just wanted to say that everything with your signage, your logo and all of that really boils down to what you have decided is your brand and your brand guidelines that you have set up, and what your brand colors are, and what your typeface is, and what your font size is. And all of that really needs to be decided first before you start doing any of your various signage throughout the store, because you want to refer to your guidelines for every single piece of signage that you put in your store. It just makes you look cohesive. It makes the store cohesive. It travels through everything, and it makes your decision making much easier if you stick with your guidelines.
Right. And that's why this slide was here. It was part of signage. So we're not quite to the checkouts yet. We have to talk about lighting, which is probably the most important design element of anything that we're going to talk about today. And we will focus on this more closely when we're in person. Excuse me. But basically, we want to be thinking about lumen output, and that means how bright your light bulbs are and the color temperature of those light bulbs. And 3,500 Kelvin is really what we love for retail environment. And then how actually products look, the color rendering index of that light bulb, we want that CRI to be 85 or above. And then again, always highlight your displays 3 times brighter. Excuse me. And there are three levels of lighting. We have the overall ambient light, which could be pendant lights, it could be your LED or recessed fluorescent lights. And then accent lighting, which is super important. And those are these par 30 and par 38 bulbs, which we will be bringing with us. And we will show you how powerful they are and how they can really sell merchandise. So be careful when you're going to just a Home Depot or whatever and getting some screw-in bulbs into your track heads. You're probably not buying what you need, because these are about $25 and the ones in Home Depot are like $2.99, and literally you're getting what your money pays for. So these will last 10,000 hours. They illuminate great. They have 3,500 Kelvin temp, over 85 CRI, and over 1,000 lumen output. And then decorative lighting would be just some fun things that you might want to put in your store, but I wouldn't count on this necessarily as being your overall ambient light. It's just some fun visual to put in.
Right.
And we always want to layer lighting. So we want, really bright showcases, but we also want something to pull us into the space. So there are definitely many layers of lighting that we incorporate into selling environments. And then we do want to think about carts and baskets, because they are important elements to get people to buy more. And you can get these in the brand color. You can put your logo on these items. Branded snacks. Also, people, again, that's that sense of taste, and you're breaking bread with your customers. Providing little lounge areas or spaces to chill or watch a football game or warm up by a little fireplace. I love this. This is the Idea Bar. This is in a small jewelry store on a historic Main Street in New Hampshire. And your seating can be really fun. It can really reflect your brand.
And if you don't have a lot of room for a chair, even just a simple ottoman or a stool or a poof or something, people sometimes just need to sit down. Maybe you have people who are shopping together, and one of them is the real gangbuster shopper and the other one is just overloaded with bags and just wants to sit. And it's important to have seating.
Yeah.
It's more welcoming.
And people say, well, I don't have room. You know what? You probably do, because you probably have too much merchandise on your floor. So we're going to tell you to take
fixtures.
take a picture out and throw in a chair. It'll make a difference.
If you can get people to stay longer in your store, you are not only probably selling more, but you're also developing a relationship with that customer. And that is so important for small businesses. People can maybe buy your merchandise online somewhere else, but as a small business owner, your most important asset is the relationship, the personal relationship you are developing with people who are coming into your store.
Exactly.
They know your name, you know their name. It's really important.
And, these little seating areas, they can also be right outside your store. Sometimes people are in these little interior malls on Main Street, and there might be a little area that could have a seating space, and you could have some marquee materials, and then there's a beautiful green wall there, and it could be an Instagram wall. But this is that biophilic, just bringing greenery in, and as long as you keep it healthy, which is the most important thing. And then beverage and snack bars are really big, especially in jewelry stores these days. But you'd be amazed. A lot of jewelers have had a hard time taking out showcases to put this in, but they're realizing now they're selling more.
Yeah.
So really, it is about not always just how much product you have on the floor, but the experience that you're creating. I can't say that enough, and we're going to be saying that quite a few times when we're on site. Maybe shining shoes while someone's waiting for something. So bring in something fun, an area for kids to play. Take care of the husbands. That would be the bar in the previous one.
Well, that's where I would be too. So I don't know.
And then, mirrors. Don't underestimate putting mirrors in. People want to look at themselves. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You put some mirrors in, people will use them, whether you're selling something that they're trying on or not. Putting in some fun quotes in dressing rooms.
Dressing rooms are really, I think, underestimated because I can't tell you how many I've been in, and there's like a hook.
I know.
Well, where am I going to put my bag? It's make it comfortable for people. You are the host. You need to make sure that your guests are treated really well and they have all the amenities that they need. And you know what? Pony up and get a few more hooks and a little stool in that dressing room. Make them comfortable.
Exactly.
They don't want to put their things on the floor.
Right. And the same thing with restrooms. Make these restrooms be fantastic. If you offer a restroom, to someone. This is actually in Madison where they had an artist do these beautiful banners out in the cafe. And then the artist did the bathroom too. Oh my gosh.
And wall covering, you can get wall covering, really cool stuff
easy.
very easily. And,
I know.
you know, it just takes it just takes some effort. Oh, these are my favorites because this is actually at an orchard that we do merchandising with in Southern Illinois. It's a peach and apple orchard. They have 2 restrooms open to the public. I'm like, Michelle, get something in there. The restrooms were just horrible. So she found these fabulous wallpapers. One is a peach, one is an apple. I had her husband, he cut out the shapes of a peach and an apple for the mirrors. They put in these great farm sinks. I can't even tell you how transformed these bathrooms are. It's such a difference.
Conversation pieces. People love them. They'll come out talking about your restrooms.
Mhm.
Okay, so the last thing, transaction counter. This is super important to make sure that this area is well signed, clean, professional. Your store policies are noted or services that you offer are noted because again, a lot of people don't really know everything that you do. You think they do, but they often don't.
You know, but they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember.
Does it reflect your brand? Is it compliant or accessible to people in wheelchairs? How are people entertained if they have to wait? So you can see the lower section in these 2 photos. That's the ADA side for wheelchair accessibility. But just look how fun they've created these checkout areas and they've really branded them. Versus like, what happened here? And is this a checkout on the left? Like what? Where am I? I have no idea.
A lot of
This is-
times
gives me a headache.
people will use that checkout carrier as their office, but
Yeah.
it's not your office.
Right.
It's people are giving you money at this location. And so
Yeah.
you really need
Crazy.
to make it.
Look nice.
Yes.
Now this
Yeah.
looks nice, but I have no idea where I am. I really don't.
Yeah, there's no name.
This was in Cleveland, I think.
Yeah.
And I went in it because it was just darling window display I brought in. I had no idea where it was.
We're gonna say they're very new and their signage
Well,
is on
that's-
order.
There you go. Let's just say that.
We're good.
Whereas these are just fantastic. I mean, they're beautifully designed, they're well signed. It's making a statement and I'm like happy to give my money over to these
And I
people.
guarantee you, there's gonna be a chunk of customers that walk in your store that have no idea what the name of your store
Yeah.
is, even though you had it on your front door or your awning or the front of your building. They
Right.
still don't know what it is
So tell
because they're
them.
not paying attention. So
Right.
the last place that they want to see it is, and when they're giving you their money, they want to see the name of your store so that imprints in their brain.
Exactly. And again, tell them what you do. So important. And your bags, your packaging, it's got to be coordinated, has to be branded. You want people walking out of your store with a representation of where they just were. And then thank them and say, it doesn't have to end here, invite them to your website.
Mhm.
Now, before we're done, hang on. Okay, toolboxes, we can skip that for now but we wanted to let you know that if you put in this password RM25RWRK to specialtystoreservices.com, so this is on the right side of the red exclamation point, you will get 10% off on anything in that catalog through June 15th, courtesy of Specialty Store Services, which is really working to help small.
Right, and they have
independents.
great things. They have risers, they have slat wall hooks, they have baskets, they
Nesting
have
tables.
adorable little mini shopping carts. If
Yeah.
you have a place like that, you need that. Nesting tables, they have all sorts of different retail suppliers, so
Right.
retail supplies.
So we'll leave this one up, but we are done, Joe. We did within 90 minutes.
Woo.
I know. Is Joe there or did we
I
put him
am.
to sleep? Okay,
No.
okay. Woo. So I
I
think,
could-
go ahead.
I could never go to sleep during one of your presentations.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
I always say that I have a lot of ideas for exterior design and I can look at something and know what to do. But when it comes to interior merchandising, I know what I like if I see it,
Yeah,
but I could never
right.
design it. And so a presentation like this is so helpful for someone like me. So I can imagine how helpful it is for our business owners.
Yeah, it is. It's true. A lot of business owners will say, yeah, I don't know how to get there, but if I see it, I'll know that's what I need.
Mhm.
one thing that I thought of that wasn't mentioned, but it was mentioned the last time I saw this in person, and you mentioned about maybe the Main Street program or a Connect Community program could have, if there's a space that for storage, maybe yeah, I'll let you talk about that.
Yes, so, and that's something like we do bring up during those early morning meetings, but we did think that it would be a really good idea if there was a vacant space or a storage unit or an old garage somewhere where people who have used props
Mhm.
but don't have room to store them anymore, could bring them to this sort of like a,
Share.
yeah,
Use
it's like
and
a
share.
prop share
Yeah,
garage.
it's like a library.
Yeah, of props and
You
just,
can
and
borrow them, use them.
could be pieces
alter
of
them.
fabrics, old bikes, old cans of paint, risers, crates, rakes,
Yeah.
things that can be used throughout the year, but used for a period of time, then you bring it back,
Right.
or you upcycle it and then
Right.
bring something back.
Right.
So we did think that that would really be a good place to generate ideas and to get the community involved, and because everyone's always culling and
Mhm.
getting rid of stuff.
Right.
So
But somebody else could use it. They're like, oh, which I have done before. I can use that in this particular window display. That would be great. And you get to know your community more too. You can,
someone would have to be responsible for curating it. So someone brings it, let's say if it's to a Main Street manager's office and says, would this fit into the
Mhm.
garage of props? And they might say, oh yeah, that's perfect. And then take a picture and you throw it online and then let everyone knows, oh, something new arrived in
Right.
the garage of props.
Right.
Yeah, so there's always this.
Or just come take a look and see what's in here.
Yeah.
We're open this, these times. But yeah, just it's easy then. You have some free resources to use and yeah, I think it's.
And also posting, if there's anyone creative in the community, like even retired art teachers are really good. If they want to help do window displays in the
Yep.
community, whether it's a volunteer kind of job,
Yep.
or they just want to get paid some minimum wage just to get out of the house, but be creative. That person could work with multiple different businesses downtown to make the windows look good.
Mhm.
I was imagining a Facebook page where people update it with photos in that storage of
Yeah.
mannequin
Yeah.
body parts,
Body parts.
torsos and
Right, torso.
arms and legs and
I would
of
love to
manic.
do that.
Yeah. Well, this was great. And for everyone who was watching, again, this was the presentation that will kind of be in conjunction with those visits in those 5 communities that I mentioned. And then so come on the days, if you're watching this, you already have been invited to that. So come with questions, come with ideas, and Lynn and Suzanne, and in some of them, Julia Killian will be there as well, and they will answer your questions. Or
And you'll be there too, Joe.
yes, I will.
So you'll be able to answer questions on storefront things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also included when it'll either be me or Aaron Welty that sends out the invite, or it might be your Main Street director. We'll also have the handouts that Lynn and Suzanne put together as well.
Yeah.
And if you are one of the one-on-one consult ones, make sure to fill out the questionnaire ahead of time.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks.
Thanks, Joe. And looking forward to, let's see, I'll be in Beloit and Ripon.
Yes, and Julie and I will be doing
The
other 3 together, and then I'll be with Lynn also. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I'll be in all 5. Cool.
Yay.
Joe will be with us.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe.